Alright, so I wanted to show how to set up one of these mules and go over some of the features that they have and kind of go over why I set it up the way that I did. So for starters, it's three main parts. You've got the base here. It's simply just bolted together. You can break it down flat and assemble it in just a few minutes, but usually I travel with it like this basically, and it's the base put together. The seat simply slides in between the base rails like that, and then this fits easily in your car, whatever you may have if you're going to market or traveling around with it. So to set up the head, it's just a matter of sliding it between the rails. And then one thing to note is that this wedge to hold the head on has a matching mortise, so it only goes in from one side correctly anyway. You might damage the mortise if you put it in the wrong way. So I set mine up to go in from the right side. Just a couple taps and it's super solid. And a little bit about the reason some people think this looks backwards, and it would be compared to the shave horse models that use the same base. But I find that in use, so the shave horse just have their forces just going front to back, and so you don't need much side to side stability. Whereas these spoon mules, you start cranking on them a little bit, there's a lot more side to side forces when you're bearing down with your draw knife. So with that in mind, I switched up and put the two legs in front, and it keeps the head much more stable in a side to side. And what's also different between this and the shave horse is the body positioning when you're clamping. So in a shave horse, again, you'd be more like this, whereas in the spoon mule, it looks more like this. So you've got 2 feet planted on the ground firmly, and it's really quite stable. It may not look it, but you really don't need any more stability for your seat than this single leg in the rear. And when I show you this setup with the shave horse head attachment, there's another reason that I'll go over for having the 2 legs up front. But other than that, that's the main. It's as easy as that. To take it back apart, just knock the wedge out, and it's easy as that. And then I set it up so my seat can slide back and forth. I like being able to make quick adjustments to how far away I am from the head. You could alternatively make this tenon here longer with another wedged mortise to keep it in place if you so choose. Okay, one other option I wanted to give about setting up the head is when you're working on something like these cups, this way here, the cup's super supported for cutting down this end grain right here or coming off the handle, whereas if you position it this way, it's a little less supported because it's hanging out in free space here. So as an alternative, you can actually set the head up what would be thought of as backwards to get a more supported work holding position to work this side of a cup or bowl or whatever you may be working on. Okay, so now I've pulled out my shop mule, the one I use in my shop. The other one's my traveling mule. and I keep this one set up with Tim Manny's design shave horse head back here. I want to stress that I do not sell plans and I don't make these heads, but you should check out Tim Manny's website for the plans. I highly recommend them. I think it's just a great shave horse head, and it happens to work really well with this with my spoon mule too, and I'll show you why. So as you can see, I can leave these both set up and have full function, full use of the mule. My seat's position, I'm in the right position for the mule, and then when I need to switch over to the shave horse, I just pop out the wedge, set the mule out aside, and then I'm actually almost all set. My seat's almost pretty much where I want it for this type of thing. Got plenty of work hauled in. You can see it transitions right over without much hassle at all. And then here's another reason why I have even the shave horse set up backwards with the two legs in front. It actually gives the pedal for the shave horse head a little bit extra room to swing between the legs, whereas up here it might run into this leg and limit your distance there. So that's another reason I can pack in all this shave horse function in just 4 feet of rails. Has to do with partially that being able to swing through the front legs and positioning the legs a little bit further apart without extra spacer blocks compared to the shave horse plans out there. So now I want to talk about some of the features and function of the head specifically. To start off with, there's a couple pieces that are meant to be somewhat replaceable on this and maintain, kind of like you have to maintain an edge on your tool. There's a couple of components of this that need to be maintained as well. The first thing is this the wire here that the jaws ride on. I put a toggle on the end so it's easy to remove or twist. So basically I do a two ply wire to give it a certain stiffness. You can experiment with different wires, and you simply just put the wire through this side of the head, through both jaws, through the other side, and bend it over. And like I said, the toggle just makes it easy to remove or twist up a ply if you need to do a new one. Now, if you're not taking your jaws out often for travel or to put in a different shaped set of jaws or something like that, then the wire holds up well. It's just if you keep bending and unbending, you may need to change out the wire. The other thing that needs constant attention are the leather pads. So pretty much any leather I've used, it all ends up burnishing or becoming a little bit slick in here from constantly being compressed and pulled against. So whenever I see a little shine or a little compression, or I'm losing a little grip on my jaws, I keep some like 80 grit sandpaper handy and just run it across the face. And that greatly improves the holding power of these jaws. It also allows you to hold things very delicately, to do facet work and things like that without denting or damaging the workpiece. And so sometimes you will have to switch out the leather. Again, these pads will last, several months to a couple of years, depending on how much you use the mule. But just expect that you'll eventually have to replace those. And it's pretty easy. I just super glue glue it in. It's just leather, pretty much, you know, different leathers may have work a little bit different, but it's nothing to stress out about too much. So a couple other notes on the shape of the head and why it is this way. So whenever you're working on a spoon, I like to have the handle be as fully supported on both sides if possible. Rather than anything, you wouldn't want your spoon up like this. It's just putting a lot of extra force right at the crank unnecessarily. So working the spoon in this orientation is easy, but then the reason for this notch is so that you can turn it around and again have it fully supported without it being propped up at an angle, you know, causing extra stress and kind of throwing off the angle of your workpiece and stuff as you're working. So that's nice. And then I further take material away from this channel here so that you can turn these spoons to do the chamfers on these. So these channels give you that option to twist the spoon and still get really nice holding, supported work holding there. And then I also use these little spacer blocks here. You can definitely do different widths of these, and what these do is they just slide right down in here and they change the opening that the jaws can go. So that's as far as they open with the spacer and then without the spacer. So I'll give you an example here. So if I wanted to do the hollowing work on this spoon, it's going to put a lot of side-to-side force and a lot of torque and stuff. So I want a really supported grip, and as you can see, with the jaws open up full width, they're coming, they want to ride a little bit lower on the handle, and my feet are spread out pretty wide. Whereas if I put this little guy in here, it allows me to raise up the jaws and not have to spread my feet as wide, and I get a much more powerful and supported grip that's ready for a lot of torque, rather than this grip that's lower down on the handle and more spread out there. Okay, so that's kind of my introduction to how to set up these mules and just a little bit about how they work. I plan to do future videos specifically showing how I do the draw knife work on different kinds of spoons and chopsticks and probably some cups, and how I use it to do even larger bowls, like hewn bowls. And you can get sets of plans for these. I saw them on my website. They're $30, and I also offer a free build tutorial. It's free. It's about 30 pages long. It's got lots of great pictures and text to help you along with the build and get it set up. Jeff Lefkowitz was the one who did the drawings and helped me with that tutorial, so a big thanks to him. The plans are great. They're measured drawings. You can take measurements directly from the drawings and get where you need to go. And here's a quick view of the set of plans. Very clearly laid out. Measured drawings. You've got the recipe up there that gives you the basic step-by-steps, which you get a lot more detail from the free tutorial. You got a cut list there, and then page 2 gets all the parts and components there.